Hello again. Welcome back to Green Disruptors. I'm your host, Megan Kjar. Today, we're diving into one of the most pressing and exciting challenges in energy, powering the AI revolution. Joining us is Chris Wissemann, co-founder and CEO of New Power Solutions, a company tackling one of the biggest hurdles hyperscalers face today: how to build reliable, scalable power infrastructures fast enough to keep the pace with the explosive AI-driven demand. With over 40 years in the energy sector spanning solar, gas-fired generation, wind, offshore, infrastructure, and more, Chris brings uncommon depth, long-term perspective, and practical engineering wisdom to a market that many describe as the Wild West. We talk about irrational exuberance in the industry, the AI arms race, and how hyperscalers are scrambling to source power, and why pragmatic engineering wins over hype. Let's get into it. Morning, Chris. Thanks for joining us on Green Disruptors today.
Good morning. Glad to be here.
Yeah, so tell us where you are this fine day.
So I'm actually coming to you out of the west coast of Florida, right near Clearwater.
Very nice. Is it like beach accessible?
It's not beach accessible. That's just not conducive to working and beaching. I haven't figured that out.
Right?
Right. It's work.
Like just because you get your laptop out on the beach doesn't mean you're working.
Doesn't mean the margarita is sitting here on the side, right? Absolutely. Yeah,
Exactly.
good stuff.
Okay, so let's start out. Tell us about you and your kind of your professional background.
Yeah, so I've been in energy forever. I'm a product, frankly, of the 1970s. The first time I went to fill my motorcycle up with gas and you had to wait in a gas line, and I went, this is crazy. Energy makes the world go round. So I literally went to college and got a degree in engineering focused on energy production. And I've been in all aspects of energy production for 40 years. So started out in solar, then went into natural gas fired sort of cogeneration, then energy efficiency, and then wind power, and a couple of different times back to natural gas fired power sort of on site. And
Mm-hmm.
here we are with this new company that has a team, frankly, folks like me that have been in energy forever with gas fired power experience, kind of in the moment of when data centers are too big for utilities to serve, and we're building the power plants. Kind of that simple.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm sure that there is so much perspective that you have from kind of riding the wave all these years. So, and I'm sure that that's really valuable as a new business leader and kind of a unique angle you have. So, I mean, it would be hard to distill a bunch of wisdom on a short podcast, but yeah, what have you seen that you've implemented into new PC um, that's working?
Well, it is actually, I think the easiest way to say it is having lived through multiple cycles. And I'll give you an example of it gives me and my team the ability to avoid irrational exuberance. So an example would be in the right, right in the dot-com era. That was coupled with a race to build power plants and people buying turbines because they seemed scarce. And then the
Mm,
whole bottom fell out from under, and there were tens and tens of turbines that people had bought that were stored on the waterfront in Houston, and people spending, having spent billions of dollars on basically hardware they couldn't use. So that tempers some of us right now going, no, we're not just going to buy turbines because we'll find a home for them later. It's much more of a, like pragmatically, if you, Mr. Hyperscaler, want to build a power plant, great, we'll go get you turbines, but like, let's have a meeting of the minds first. So it's a lot of that because we do find this is a very fluid, frothy market. What we do find and I have to say, we're almost like the elder statesmen. I mean, look at me, elder statesmen in the market, is that there were a lot of people that went out and just bought gas turbines. And now they're going, oh, the project didn't quite come through fast enough, but I've got $300 million worth of turbines. Want to buy them?
my
I
word.
mean, and so there's a lot of this, what I call secondary market turmoil, and people bought the wrong turbines just because there was so much anxiety about, oh, can we build a power plant for whoever it is, right? I won't name names necessarily, but so yeah, that's how it kind of percolates into like having a pragmatic viewpoint and being a little bit. I'm an engineer, being a little bit of an engineer, and say, okay, yeah, we don't put the cart before the horse. Let's do it procedurally correct.
Well, and I think that's more valuable than ever in the current climate that we're living in because just the narrative is kind of fear-based, and that makes people make irrational decisions too quickly. And so it's really valuable to have somebody with experience to be able to come in and just give it an unemotional analysis, right?
That's right. I mean, to your point of fear-based, it is absolutely fear-based. I think part of this is, let's just say, some of the leaders with the big egos in the
Oh,
hyperscaler.
name names.
Yeah, no names. No names.
'Cause-
They have a lot of money to spend,
yeah.
right? And so their fear is that the other guy's going to get ahead of them. Chat GPT 47 will come out before Grok, 42. And and so they really have almost in a way no choice because it's perceived as an existential problem. If somebody gets too far ahead, it'll be very difficult to catch up, right? You have to catch the attention of everybody that's already gotten used to using one AI helper, and to switch it has to be materially better, right? So it's a true arms race.
Yeah, and that's, that scarcity narrative, I guess, isn't necessarily false. Like, um, speed
Yeah.
is relevant, but I don't know. How do you make decisions based on that need for speed?
Yeah. So I'm going to take a minute and just take us back to what's kind of going on in the market, because
Yeah,
the
please do.
if you if you're a hyperscaler and you know you need X gigawatts of data centers and you've got a plan to spend whatever $100 billion, $200 billion over the next 3, 4, 5 years, they don't have the teams internally to develop all of those and find the real
Mm-mm.
estate, do the stakeholder meetings and procure the equipment and figure all that stuff out. So they really do reach down into the market. They rely upon all of the ad hoc developers, and there's just a huge gradient of tier one developers down to the proverbial two guys in a truck that might have a great piece of real estate. And so I would say it is truly the Wild West. And so what we do is we don't independently develop real estate. What we do is help all of those various feeders to make their sites both appealing and more mature in terms of development timeline, right? Some of these are, when you buy farmland in the middle of the Midwest, it's not even necessarily affiliated with the town. But often there's like annexation and the need to build roads and sewers and streetlights. And so that's the sort of stuff that takes time, and a hyperscaler doesn't want to start with raw land some of the time. They prefer to start one with land that has, great, the roads are all set, it's all mapped out, all we
Uh-huh.
need to do is spend the money and go, and we see that we can get this one online in 2 years. And then that goes to the top of the heap. So that's kind of the way it's going, and it could be, and like I said, it could be with anyone, tier one developers, new entrants to the market that are either big real estate companies that know how to do real estate development, they just haven't worked with data centers yet.
So how are you as a company finding these right projects for you? Well, tell us too, like how new are you guys? I mean,
Yeah.
there's obviously a huge demand. You've got all the experience. So how do you get this business off the ground?
Yeah, that is a lot. So we have like 4 hours this afternoon here. So
I got all day, Chris.
So, as a little bit of a story, right? I and much of my team were actually in offshore wind, developing big offshore wind, huge infrastructure projects over the last several years. And now we've been eyeing, because we're power generation folks, eyeing what's happening in AI But we were sort of single-mindedly focused on offshore wind until late last year. And so we basically switched over and took the whole team that had power generation experience out and started the company with no more than, hey, we see a problem, we know a solution, but what we really need to do was find capital because, again, we would be the proverbial two guys in a truck. So we went out and just started doing the kind of knocking on doors thing. I have a lot of experience raising money in private equity in New York, and just started the consummate networking. And there were a lot of, as it goes, a lot of no's. People just can't do it. Their fund was only for renewables. They like the idea, they like the people, can't do it. And then we basically found a couple and negotiated with what we consider the biggest in the industry, so Energy Capital Partners, who had a partnership with ADQ, one of the sovereign wealth funds out of the United Arab Emirates, to put a lot of money into exactly this space, $25 billion into building power plants for data centers behind the meter. And so the next thing was, how do we get out into the market and how do we get to Amazon and Google? And honestly, my COO just started reaching out on LinkedIn. And lo and behold, people started answering because there was so much pull in the market. We've never really marketed through LinkedIn before. And then just, frankly, 2 weeks ago, we went to our first conference and was up on the podium, and that turned into like a snowballing. And so we have basically lots of prospects, and it's an issue of, in the meantime, we're deep into engineering and procurement and designing controls because you really need to have the solutions, hence the name of the company, New Power Solutions, really need to come to the discussions with answers. It can't just be a whiteboard, we can do this, or a Chinese menu. So essentially the idea was to go to market with a reference design for a 300 megawatt power plant that then we can tweak around based on either that site or that particular use, right? Whether it's training or inference or cloud or what have you. And that way we can move the dialogue along faster because we're coming out and saying, okay, here it is. And this is sort of the pricing around the contract, and we can go to market. We're a bunch of people that have both sort of engineering and business experience. We just put things into contracts fast.
Well, I think from a marketer perspective, you pointed out a few very important things. And that was, first, the whole business is based around a problem that you saw, like obviously. And then the second is the offer, refining the offer and getting it right comes before any kind of a sales or outreach pitch. So I'm not surprised that you went to LinkedIn, and then people are already looking for these solutions. So when you put it in front of their face, it's almost like you could have said it in any number of different ways, but if the solution is there, people respond, right?
I think that's exactly it. We even had a couple that actually, lo and behold, contacted us through our website. Right, and I haven't seen that pull of a market probably in my career.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
Right, and in the energy market, it just isn't like that. It's generally a very stilted market, where you got a lot of regulatory affairs, and you spend 3 years talking about something. And so I actually just have to say, it is really exciting being able to be just in direct commercial relationships rather than having to work it through state agencies, federal regulations, all that sort of stuff. The arena it leads to a lot of velocity.
Yeah. I wouldn't have it any other way. If I running my own business, no thanks, straight to commercial, thanks very much.
That's exactly it. And so to a certain extent, because we were in this offshore wind space, which is highly structured and a lot of government process, RFPs, and the pace of government is just not my pace, as you can probably see. So the pace of being able to sort of slingshot out of that slow world into the pace that we're more comfortable with is just, frankly, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, sounds fun. So what does the next year look like, and what does growth look like under such high demand?
Yeah, yeah, it's wild. So we're in this what I would call honeymoon phase of starting up where right, everything's good
Hmm.
and we're just executing our first agreements, right? And looking at a few acquisitions because we have a lot of money behind us. And so it's the arduous part is the sort of lawyering around getting long-term contracts together and having the pace of engineering and costing and financial models all follow that. So it's a sort of choreography of all those things so that when we actually sign the agreements, it is something we can do, right? So we have to really, you have to curb, you have to curb a little bit, of curb the wish list because everybody wants, 2 gigawatts built in 2 years, and that just is not the reality. So there's a lot of across the table nitty gritty. We wouldn't call them negotiations much. There's a lot of education involved, right? Of the art of what can really be done versus what people want to be done, and finding that meeting of the minds on a pathway to both go fast and plan for big in subsequent phases is, it gets to be fairly heady because we're not all like Elon Musk, where he could just pull $1 billion in cash out of his pocket and make all that happen, right? We have access to money, but it's still a little bit of a rigorous underwriting
Yeah.
process, right? So
Yeah.
it's a different thing.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm kind of glad we're not all Elon Musk personally.
Yeah, that would be an
No
interesting world.
offense. But anyway, um, my snarky comment made me forget my real
Well,
question.
it's all right. I can throw you a lifeline because there's over the next year what it's a lot of now taking the ideas and the proposal. So even like procuring equipment, it is not going to Home Depot. So when you're buying three, four, $500 million worth of gas turbines, there's a lot that comes with that. Like even just having everybody agree on the warranties, the structure of the long-term service, and the who does what to whom, right? If the turbine starts too many times in a week, whose fault is it that the warranty is? It gets to
Yeah.
be painstakingly detailed, and so the balance just in business growing is right now we're really predominantly in origination, right? So the balance to me always is this: well, we can't have the whole team switch over to negotiating contracts and engineering and all that and stop origination. So it's always the painful part of growing the staff and capabilities at the same time that you are really growing your backlog. And so yeah, so we're going to be looking for more people and doing that middle phase.
Simultaneously with still, yeah. I mean, that's my language too, like different business, different sector, but like same thing. Like you can't ever turn off your pipeline, even if you're struggling with delivery, because that the stopping of the cash flow kills the business. So
Right?
you got to solve both problems at once, and that's why not every business succeeds, I guess.
Oh, no, absolutely. I mean, it's also really, it's a lot of time management because we're, we are, current business is conducted all remote. And so we are doing this all day. And, and what we try and do is do the equivalent of stand-up meetings on this. Like if we can get to the point, right? Problem, answer in 15 minutes, why be on the phone for an hour? Let's just,
I'm into
let's do it,
that. Jeez.
right? And have
Yeah.
people, it's as you get to bigger meetings and have people pay attention because as you get to bigger meetings, right, you find that like 2 people are having a dialogue and 6 are doing their email.
Yeah.
Yeah, you gotta manage all that. Just okay, pay attention for this 15 minutes and we'll be done.
Yeah. So I remember my question from 3 minutes ago. Maybe the moment has passed, but I was interested in what you were saying about education and how it can get heady and kind of managing expectations. Um, do you think that there's any processes you can put in place that can eventually make that easier?
Yeah, there there's a lot we could talk a lot. I'll just give you an example, right? So in the United States, we basically haven't addressed load growth in practically 20 years, right?
Yeah,
So the
that's true.
whole system is really rusty. And that's not just electric utilities, that's also regulators. And that's also what's called the independent system operators that kind of manage all the generators in a particular region. And so what is being confronted right now is, oh my God, all these data centers want all this power. And so they're trying to write rules and regulations, and it's just dawning on them simultaneously that, wow, if you have a power plant on site, but you don't have grid connection, maybe if you gave grid connection, that power plant could serve both purposes. It could help stabilize the grid and provide power to the power plant. And so when I talk about heady, this is like getting the whole system to recognize that we're in this new world of large scale distributed power. And that impacts the need for transmissions lines and all that sort of stuff. So I think it's a long way of saying in 3 years, when they've worked through that, through the committees and all this engineering, I think there will be a template for doing what kind of at the super high level people are saying, oh my God, China's building as much electric capacity in a year that we will do in 10. Um, we'll have a pathway to do it
Yeah.
fast. We don't have to do what China's doing because they're doing it really quick and dirty, and it's great if you don't have clean air and clean water and care about people and that sort of stuff. It's like, you can build things
No.
fast. But I like
So
my
funny quip about that. I lived in China for 6 months when I was young teaching English, and we had a standing joke that like we would ride the bus into the city and there'd be like, wait, was that building there before? There would be like a building up overnight. So who knows how long those buildings lasted, but it was,
right.
they can be very fast over there. I don't know if that's always a good thing, but
No, exactly. But and it can be stunning. But I have great faith in the entrepreneurialism of the U.S. in that part of what the power crunch will do in AI is it will force the thought around more efficient compute, right? To get more out of less, so you don't just have to go bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. Because at some point, it just it's a capital issue. It can't go on forever. It's a resource issue, right? We're already finding a lot of market, right? Obviously, the power is constrained, but also now we're getting to gas constrained and all that sort of stuff. And in the end, we would like to have as many renewables kind of plugged into these systems as much as possible. Where speed is the issue right now, and again, in a couple of years, it will be okay. How do we get off of fossil fuels?
right. Yeah. That's a good point to make because if having to like be clean energy perfect right out of the gate is the goal, then it's probably going to be even slower. It's like you just need to be able to get it done so that you're able to take step 2 and 3 and 4 to solve those problems as well.
Exactly, and actually, that's another angle I skipped over earlier. That is part of what we're doing is we're in a couple of partnerships with renewable developers that might have 4,000 acres of property or options. We can put a power plant there, and then you can develop solar over time.
Yeah. And that's
Yeah,
a good partnership. I can see that.
right.
So I'm going to flip the script on us to wrap up here. So, for someone who's powering data centers that is powering AI, are you using AI in your business?
We are using AI in our business, and we're using it in two ways. The mundane way that everybody does, which is to refine prose, writing things faster. But also, we have, if you look at these power plants that we're building, they're actually pretty complicated. It's a wedding cake of different types of power generation equipment. gas turbines, reciprocating engines, and then batteries. And so to optimize that, you actually need machine learning on how to dispatch the right pieces of equipment at right times. And an example would be when you've run a data center for 6 months, you start to see patterns. You know that all the teenagers get on gaming, after school. There's a spike, right? You know that Monday morning there's a spike when everybody goes back to work or whatever it is. And so when you start to see those and you can predict what's going to happen, then you can optimize the mix of things and be ready. And this is what people do. This is what the transmission operators do on an entire system scale. We just need to do it at the individual on-site power plant scale. So that involves a lot of building machine learning into the system. So
I was going to say that's custom AI software specifically for this. I mean,
Beautiful.
that's where the power is these days, is finding out how to customize the technology that exists to your specific problems. It's an exciting time for that, I think.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an exciting time for this whole space.
Yeah. Well, very cool. This has been really fun, and I think we could keep talking, but we'll wrap it up. So thank you so much for joining me today, and thanks for being a pragmatic problem solver and a level head in this crazy times.
Thank you so much. It really was a pleasure. I'm glad to do it anytime. Take care.
Chris, thank you for bringing clarity, sanity, and decades of engineering leadership to one of the fastest moving markets on the planet. Your insights on scaling power infrastructure, navigating frothy demand, and staying grounded in real-world feasibility are incredibly valuable. To learn more about New Power Solutions and their work helping hyperscalers build reliable power, check out the links in the episode notes. As always, thanks for listening to Green Disruptors, where we spotlight innovators reshaping energy, infrastructure, and sustainability around the world. This podcast is brought to you by Mountaintop Social Marketing. Until next time, keep innovating and doing good for the planet.